Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something called standard costs. Now, I know that might sound a little, well, boring, but trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see it for what it really is, a financial detective kit for running a much, much smarter business. So let's get right into it.
All right, so picture this. You're running a business, you get the latest report, and boom, you came in under budget. That's got to be good news, right? Well, maybe. See, any good manager knows that the number you see on the page, that's almost never the whole story. The real clues, the important stuff, is usually hiding just under the surface.
So let's take this simple example. Say a bread factory. The plan, your standard cost for making 1,000 loaves of bread, was supposed to be $600. But when all the flour settled, your actual cost was only $550. You saved $50. So, time to pop the champagne? Not so fast. And this is where it gets really interesting. Is this good news, or is it a mystery you absolutely have to solve? Was it just a lucky fluke, or did your team do something amazing that you can bottle up and repeat over and over again? To be a great manager, you can't just take the win. You have to dig in and understand why it happened. And that is exactly where our detective kit comes into play. So what is a standard cost really? Well, it's not some wild guess you pull out of a hat. It's a carefully, meticulously calculated projection. Think of it like a financial blueprint. It's what your costs should be if everything is running like a well-oiled machine. It's your benchmark, your baseline, the thing you measure the messy reality against. So if it's a blueprint, how do you actually build a good one? I mean, you can't just make it up, right? A truly solid standard cost is engineered by bringing together a few different really key sources of information. First, you look backwards. You dig into your own historical data from your accounting records to see what you've done before. But you have to be careful here, because if you only do this, you might just be baking your old mistakes into your future goals. So, second, you bring in the experts, engineers who can give you technical reports on what's physically possible. And third, you got to look outside your own company by benchmarking against your competitors to see what they're up to. So when you blend all three, your own history, the technical possibilities, and what the competition is doing, you get a standard that's more than just a number. It becomes a true management compass. It gives you a goal that's both realistic enough to hit, but also challenging enough to push your team in the right direction. Okay, so we've got our blueprint. Now the real detective work can begin. This whole process is called variance analysis, and it's all about digging into the difference, the variance, between your plan and what actually went down. And here is the single most important rule of this investigation. Any difference you find, any variance from your standard cost, boils down to one of two culprits. It's either because you paid a different price for your stuff than you planned, or you used that stuff with a different level of efficiency than you planned. That's it. Price or efficiency. Let's break that down real quick. The price variance is simple. Did we pay more or less for our raw materials, for our labor? The efficiency variance asks a different question. Did we use more or less of those materials and labor to get the job done? And here's the fun part. Sometimes these two clues tell completely opposite stories, and finding that trade-off is exactly what a great manager needs to do. But wait, how do you pull these two clues apart when they're all tangled up in that one final number? Well, the secret weapon for any good cost detective is a tool called a flexible budget. It's this brilliant intermediate step that lets you calculate what your costs should have been for the actual number of units you produced. It's the key that unlocks the puzzle and separates price from efficiency. All right, time to put our detective hats on. Let's head back to that bread factory and finally solve our $50 mystery. Okay, quick recap of the blueprint. For our flour cost, the standard was set at 600 grams of flour for each loaf, and we expected to pay $1 per kilogram. Simple math. That gives us a standard cost of 60 cents in flour for every single loaf we make. Now, here's what really happened. We cranked out 10,000 loaves, and we were incredibly efficient, only using 500 grams of flour per loaf instead of 600. But, and you knew there was a but coming, we paid more for that flour, $1.10 per kilogram. The plot thickens. And this is the moment of truth, where the flexible budget reveals everything. Aha! That $500 savings wasn't one thing. It was two completely opposite forces at work.
We had a $1,000 favorable efficiency variance because we used way less flour. Awesome. But at the same time, we had a $500 unfavorable price variance because we paid more for it. The two together give us that net $500 savings. So mystery solved. We didn't just get lucky. The numbers are telling us a clear story. It looks like the purchasing team bought a higher quality, more expensive type of flour. Yeah, that decision cost more upfront. That's our unfavorable price variance. But that better flour probably led to less waste and way higher efficiency in the bakery. Now that isn't luck. That's a strategic trade-off. And it's a powerful, repeatable lesson for the whole business. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this detective work actually mean for a manager? Well, the real bottom line is that you have to understand the nuance, because not all costs, and especially not all savings, are created equal. When you're looking at variable costs, things like raw materials, a favorable efficiency variance is almost always a fantastic thing. It means your operations are getting more productive, which flows directly to your bottom line. But, and this is a big one, for discretionary fixed costs, think advertising, machine maintenance, or employee training, a favorable variance could actually be a huge red flag. Sure, you saved money by not running that ad campaign or by skipping routine maintenance, but that short-term win could cause some serious long-term pain. I mean, cutting your R&D budget shows up as a favorable variance this quarter, but it could be an absolute disaster next year when your competitors are launching new products and you've got nothing. And that really brings us to the whole point of this exercise. The goal of standard costing and variance analysis isn't to play the blame game. It's not about yelling at the purchasing department for going over budget on flour. The goal is to create a roadmap, to use this analysis to ask smarter questions so that you can learn, adapt, and make better decisions tomorrow. So I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. In your own world, are your budgets just a number you have to hit? A simple pass or fail target? Or are you using them as a dynamic tool, as a detective kit, to constantly learn and get smarter about how your business really works? Thanks so much for joining me.